All right. So a couple of weeks ago, before family camp, I gave a message on true freedom. It was the day after Independence Day, and I was thinking a lot about freedom. And the more I prepared for that message and I gave that message, I kind of felt like I'm just starting to get into this topic. There's actually so much here. And surprise, the more I prepared for this message, I realized I still can't cover everything. But I'm gonna get a little further with it today. But as you saw in the video, we just had our annual family camp in Gunnison at a hot springs ranch. And I think the video gives a good window into what kind of atmosphere and experiences we had. And I had a conversation with Aunt Marjorie, actually, on the porch there, and she was saying, you know what I love about our family camp? And I was like, tell me. She was like, there's no real schedule or structure. You guys just trust everybody's original minds and that they will use their time here for a good purpose. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, that is encompassed in a short, very small snippet, kind of what true freedom is, right? When God can trust us to use our time and our physical bodies and our love for a good purpose. We don't need lots of restrictions, right? And boundaries. And it's like if we are living according to God's design, then we have true freedom. So I'll come back to that. But for those of you who weren't here a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to do a little bit of a recap because there is a lot to this. And to introduce true freedom, we have to do a quick do-over of what I talked about last week. First, I had to clear up some common misconceptions as to what people typically think of freedom being, and to share what true freedom isn't. This is kind of laying the foundation to be able to understand and to approach what true freedom actually is. So, some common misconceptions of freedom is I can just do whatever I want, right? And a lot of times when we talk about freedom, we're actually pointing to things that we don't like, and we're saying, if I don't have that, then I'm free. Even the Merriam-Webster dictionary, I had 8 definitions of freedom, and they're all freedom from this. If you're not in slavery, you're free. If you are not trapped in a bad relationship, it even said marriage, you're free. If in America, not having taxation without representation, that's a political definition of freedom. And these are good things, of course, to not be under. It's a good beginning point. But I also feel like is a real definition of freedom, should that be based on things we don't like? Once we're released from these things, once we're released from slavery or sin or taxation without representation, then what do we do? Do we just automatically experience what true freedom is from that point? I have to say no, because here we are living in America. Many people would argue the most free country on earth. But if you were to talk to people and their lives and ask them about their daily experiences, do most people feel like the experience of being free? And I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people feel weighed down by their circumstances or by their relationships or by their addictions or by financial difficulties, right? So even though we have the structure or the definition of being free, we still aren't experiencing what it truly means. So I went back to the definition in our divine principle, which is to help explain the Bible. And this is a short summary of what I shared last week. To summarize, freedom cannot exist outside the principle, since the mind of an original, sinless person cannot operate outside of God's word. It will never express free will or generate free action apart from the principle. Freedom is accompanied by the responsibility laid out in the principle, and freedom pursues accomplishments that bring joy to God. Free actions generated by free will bring about only good results. And even more simplified from the Bible, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. So then, when we live according to God's design, right? When we're living in oneness with God, the way we were created to live, or we could say the blueprint or the operating instructions, then we can rise to our full potential and experience true freedom. Now, from one perspective, you might think it's kind of limiting to have to live within some kind of limits or a design. Like, well, I have to follow these instructions? I don't like to do that. Us Americans are very independent. However, if we see from the perspective that actually God has designed us with operating instructions and to live in a way that allows for maximum freedom and happiness and joy and fulfillment, then it's not a restriction to live according to God's word. And on the other hand, not living the way that God has designed us to live is kind of like using a guitar for kindling and starting a fire, because it's made out of wood, so why not? Or opening the refrigerator door and using it instead of air conditioning to cool our house, right? Like, we can do that. Should we do that? Or, as I shared last week, using a bathtub to water my orchids and filling it with moss and things that clogged my bathtub. I can do it. It doesn't mean that I'm using things the way that they are created to be used, that they're designed for, that they work best with. So using things for a purpose that they were not designed for actually disregards that item's full potential. And, in my experience, often creates more problems than it solves. So yes, we can use a guitar to start a fire. We can try to cool our house opening the refrigerator door. I can make a mess in my bathtub, and it does water my orchids. However, it disregards what that thing is actually for and creates more problems. And it's the same for us. God has created us with a beautiful, flawless design that allows for maximum potential and maximum happiness. And we do have free will. We can and we do depart from it. And we can call that freedom, but many times we find that actually we end up feeling more stuck and frustrated because things aren't the way we want them to be in our life, because we've departed from the way God designed us to be. And this is how most people live their lives, because we don't actually know, what is that supposed to look like? What is God's original design? What is that blueprint, and how do we do it? So today I want to focus more on what that is and some examples. So in the Bible, some of the first opening lines is God's creation of the universe and his blessings and direction to us. This can be seen as the original blueprint. So this is a quote from our founder, Reverend Moon, which includes quotes from the Bible. When God created Adam and Eve, he gave them the 3 blessings. Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth and have dominion over every living thing. Genesis 1:28. The first blessing, be fruitful, means that human beings should grow and perfect their characters with God at their center. The second blessing is that a perfected man and woman should become a true husband and wife, have children, and realize an ideal family, thus fulfilling their duty as true parents. God, who is the original being of true love, created human beings as his object partners of true love. Oh, I think I might have mixed up. I think I missed a slide about the third blessing, but it's referenced here. Okay. He wanted them to become perfected beings of true love, realize the ideal of true love as husband and wife, and create the environment of the kingdom of heaven. Okay, I have the third blessing here. The third blessing is that human beings should create the kingdom of heaven on earth, where they would not experience any inconvenience or lack amid the environment that God bestowed upon them. And then this summary. So to be fruitful, if we go back up, means that human beings should grow and perfect their characters with God at their center. In other words, to grow to maturity, both in body and mind, all with God at the center. Just like a tree, right? When a tree becomes fruitful, it's because the tree has reached a certain level of maturity. A tree that is 1 year old or 2 years old doesn't produce fruit. It's not mature. It can't substantiate results yet. To be fruitful is to be someone whose mind doesn't operate outside of true love. And therefore, the actions that person takes aren't outside of true love. They're all for a good purpose. To actualize and practice unselfish love in real life. To multiply, the second blessing, is to then expand that positive influence beyond just yourself, right? It's to then, in relationship, create goodness, in practicality, with the spouse, right, to create a beautiful family, to create a God-centered family full of love, to positively influence our communities, our society, and the world. And then to have dominion, that third blessing, is to interact with and care for the environment the way that God would, right? God created this amazing world for us with so much heart and love. So in other words, to love creation with the same kind of heart that God made it with. To be able to benefit from the earth without abusing it. And to not only receive from this amazing planet and the earth, but give back to it. So this is the original blueprint. When we're doing these things, then we can taste and find access to true freedom. So I'll go back to family camp. It's funny, when I'm there, I always get a lot of questions from the participants like, is there any way we could purchase this property? I wish I could just live here, could we just do family camp all year round? And I think it's not just because it's fun. It's because people are having an experience where they feel like they're enveloped in true love, and they're sharing true love with their family and their friends, and they're making new relationships that are beautiful, and they're in this amazing creation, right? Where you can watch the shadows of the clouds pass over the mountains and the sunset, and it's just this it's like all the three blessings are like just they're like almost seeping into you. You can't help it. And part of that, I realize, is the structure that we, allow for, which is very little, right? We give that freedom and trust to people to follow their original minds. And also the people who run the ranch are like that too. Like, I don't know, I feel like it'd be very easy at many places, like if you're renting from a place, they're gonna be watching you, like, make sure you don't let that kid run at the pool, don't cross that property line. I feel like it's very easy to feel like very restricted by just the location that you're in. But the environment there is already so conducive. And instead of trying to give families what we think they need, we provide an environment where each person and each family can take responsibility to have the experience that they need to have or that they want to have. And somehow I just feel like it always works. So awesome. But this is a special experience and a special place, right? And we also recognize that it's not our day-to-day reality, right? I feel like we drive back and we're coming down into Denver and we're like, okay. I love it because we get that taste, right? We get a window into a little bit of what the kingdom of heaven is like. But yet it's not everywhere. It's not our lived experience all the time. It's a little bit harder to find it in our day-to-day life. Nevertheless, I feel that I have still managed to experience that from time to time. Some of my experiences with true freedom. One of them is I really feel very alive and feel a lot of freedom when I'm working to create something for a good purpose, especially when I'm working with other people to create something for a good purpose. I love planning events. When it's our Christmas celebration and we're planning Santa's gifts for all the kids, or a talent show, or when we have a baby shower, or even our sungwas, right? Even when somebody passes away and we're planning a celebration of life, I actually feel like there's so much love and preciousness that we can bring to the community. And working with other people, it's like it's like the process of creation, right? So I feel like in doing these things for a good purpose, I experience true freedom. Another way that I have experienced true freedom is when I'm actually able to relate with my husband and be vulnerable. And when I'm able to share my fears, and even harder, my faults with him. And to know that they'll be received with grace and forgiveness. And like, it's okay, like let's do this together. That's like a true freedom in heart. It's not so much about what I'm doing, right? It's more like a freedom of my mind and a freedom of my heart that I think many people have had a difficult time to experience. But true freedom is more difficult to access in our daily life because the reality that we live in, just the way that our society is structured, the way that jobs are structured, the way that education is structured, everything is constructed out of broken people and broken societies. And so despite our best intentions, it's very hard to experience true freedom in this environment. And I think about it, and the three great blessings are actually so simple, right? If you're just looking from like a pure perspective, right? Without thinking about the fall, without thinking all the problems, wouldn't it be very natural, right? If we were born into true unselfish love and true unselfish families, wouldn't it be the most natural thing to grow to maturity and love? For our minds and our bodies to grow together and to a place where we're able to actualize good results in our life. And then naturally, wouldn't it be natural to start not just being that individual person, but to create these beautiful results in relationships with our siblings, with our parents, with a spouse, with our children, in community? And of course, if we had that kind of a heart, would we ever take our amazing planet for granted? Right? Would we ever abuse our natural resources just for profit? Like, it's actually so simple, and one flows from one to the other. The problem is that we've done many things that are not in alignment with that, right? And those things have to be restored before we can really return to that true freedom. So this is why when we study the divine principle, and actually if we look closely at the Bible, almost the whole thing is a story of restoration, right? We got Genesis, which is the beginning, right? God's heart and God's purpose and our plan and our blueprint. Actually, it's only like the first couple chapters of Genesis. And the whole rest of the Bible is like how, person by person, family by family, do we restore the mistakes that were made between Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel to be able to bring us back to a place where we can experience oneness with God and true love and true freedom. And this is why it needs to be a big focus in our life as well. When we live according to the three great blessings, true freedom and its benefits come easily. This reminds me of Rick Warren. Mike studied a lot of his books and his education on how to revive a dying church. And he said that Rick Warren would say growth is a natural process. Actually, the growth is not hard because it will come naturally. The challenge is to remove the obstacles to growth. What are the obstacles on the road? What are the thorns that are sticking into the beauty, the natural beauty that's supposed to happen? Like, how do we remove those obstacles? Because if we remove the obstacles, growth and beauty and the three great blessings actually flow naturally. So our task is to remove our obstacles to these three great blessings. To remove our fallen nature, right? Our tendencies to think of myself first, my needs and my wants above the needs of others. To restore the mistakes that we've made in the past. Maybe there are people that we need to apologize for. There's things that we've done that we need to make amends for. But not only us, because we represent not only ourselves, but we represent history, right? We have our parents and our ancestors. We stand on the it's amazing that we're here, right? We're amazing that we're alive, and we can thank them for that, but there's also mistakes that have been made. And what can we do to restore the mistakes of our own parents, our own ancestors? There's a song, we did it a few months ago in our offering song. What's that one? You don't have to follow in your bloodline. Oh, my brother, right? You don't have to follow in your bloodline. When we can restore the things that our parents couldn't do, that our ancestors couldn't do, it's not only a victory for us. It's actually a victory for all of the people who came before us. It's actually a victory for God. A simple thing, right? We might think, letting go of this addiction is good, but it's good for me. But actually, you might be restoring broken hearts and mistakes for the past hundreds of years, and the pain that God had to experience watching your ancestors and your parents and you live through the results of those bad decisions or mistakes. And not only the mistakes of our ancestors and our families, but even the mistakes of our country or the society we represent. So the reality is, in order to have the experiences of real freedom, there's difficult work to accomplish first. Even Mike and I have had to restore or unravel and re-put together our understandings of what it means to be a husband and wife. It's required a lot of communication and trust and forgiveness. We've also had to let go of our expectations of how we want our children to be. Yeah. It's easy to fall into the trap of wanting our children to bend to my will and just do what I say because I say it. We have to let go and to find the original mind and God-given qualities that they naturally possess and find ways to nurture the best in each of them. So our focus should be removing the obstacles to natural growth and not trying to force the growth. So little by little, the progress we can make, even the small victories of overcoming a moment of selfishness or of wanting to blame somebody or judging somebody, or forgiving others, and doing the things that our parents couldn't do, doing the things that our ancestors and our cultures, even my past self, doing the things that my past self couldn't do. If I can do it today, this is a significant thing in the way of restoration and in removing the obstacles to the kingdom of heaven that God is trying to build right in front of us, right? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, the kingdom of heaven is somewhere is my reward for doing my best and receiving God's love and grace when I die. But even in the Bible, the Lord's Prayer is talking about building the kingdom of heaven on earth, right? Right now. And God is trying to cultivate it in our very lives today. So this is, I feel, just an introduction to another message on restoration, but I hope that it's opening up maybe something for you in your life, because the kingdom of heaven and true love and true freedom are not meant to be a reward after we die, right? It's actually the way we were designed to live. And it is more difficult in this world because the world is fractured. But it doesn't mean that we can't create those little bits of it, right, in our families, in our homes, in our relationships, and expand those to share with others, right, and be a representative of God to this world. So please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you for such a beautiful Sunday and all of these precious brothers and sisters, your children gathered here. Heavenly Parent, we feel so much of your love when we can see each other on Sunday mornings and share with each other, and we can bring out the best in each other. And I pray that the kind of love that we experience at family camp or on Sunday mornings is not just a fluke or a once-in-a-year experience or once-in-a-week experience, but that we can start to recognize what are the things in our lives that are holding us back from experiencing that more frequently. Heavenly Parent, maybe there's somebody that we need to forgive. Maybe there's somebody we need to ask forgiveness from. Maybe there's a painful memory we need to let go of. But Heavenly Parent, I pray that you can guide us, and we can always turn to you, even when it's difficult, with trust and love, and know that we are created for more, and that you have never given up on us, and each one of us has that potential. Thank you so much for the gift of life and the gift of free will and the ability to create beautiful things in our life. And I pray that we can just align closer and closer to you and your heart, and we can share these blessings more with the world. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick of Blessed Central Family. Amen and adieu. Right, thank you.